On a Thursday evening, Gladys escorted the house help, or auntie as they're fondly known, to go buy fish. 3 days later, radio announcements was all that her parents relied on to find Gladys.
Madame Pauline Nasoro announces her lost daughter Gladys Chatunjire, about 4 years.
Having survived child sacrifice, here is what Miss Uganda UK, Gladys Chatunjire, wants you to know.
Thank you very much again for the opportunity to share my story on this program today. When I was growing up, I survived being sacrificed as a child. We grew up from a family whereby our parents really cared where we were at all the time, who took us to school and how we came back. So I can't say that we were the type of children who were allowed to go and visit. I remember we only visited one person, which was my grandmom. So we never went out too many times. But there's this time, I remember they even locked the gate. We were never allowed to play with neighbors because we were aware that there was child sacrifice going on. We were cautioned not to accept any presents or any sweets, not to go in a stranger's car, and all these things our parents would tell us every day, things to be aware of. But then I remember this one day, they brought a house help who was meant to be taking care of us while our parents were at work. And she was there for 3 days, and I remember there was something that my mom wanted from the shop, and I couldn't go by myself as the tradition was. So I was asked to take, because I always went with my dad or my mom to the shops if anything, so I knew where the shop was. It was literally outside the gate. So when I went, my mom asked me to accompany her to show her where the shops were. So we went to where the shops were. And when we reached...
Your mom asked you to accompany
the lady, yeah, to show her, because she was new in the area. Please help her and show her where we get this. Actually, I remember it was fish. So my mom was getting dinner ready, and my mom wanted fish. So she said to me, show her where the fish is, where they sell fish. So when we reached there, the fish, when she looked at the fish, she said it wasn't nice. So she said to me, let's walk further. So we walked further, and I realized we're walking further away from home. And then I said to her, I don't know where we are. And then she said, fine, it's okay, I know where we're going. So she went back. She took me longer back. And then I remember seeing my house from afar. And then I said to her, are we not going to go back home? And then she said, we're still looking for fish. Actually, we got the fish and we kept on moving. I said to her, home is that way. And she said, no, we're going to have to go this way. That's not the way home. So she took me, and then we started walking. And I liked walking because then I thought I have a chance to be away from home.
Yeah, as any other child.
I'm a child. But then it got, after 10, 15, 20 minutes for a 3 to 4 year old, you're tired. So I said to her I wanted to go back home. And then she said, we're going home. And then we started walking endlessly.
Gladys soon realized that she was heading a direction far from home. A little girl with a stranger, whose details Gladys's parents were not even well versed with, was such an opportunity for danger.
But I remember crying because my feet were hurting and they were swollen at the time. I was wearing some shoes that my feet were so swollen to fit in again anymore. But there was a man, and people kept on asking me, do you know her? And I kept on saying, yes, I know her. She's called Auntie. And they asked me my parents' names. I remember I knew where my mom works. I said she's a nurse, she works in Zambia, and my dad is a businessman. But I think I remembered my mom's first name, not both names. So she kept on telling people she's taking me home. And then at one point we stopped. I was hungry, I was crying, and we were walking and walking.
So at this point when you realized something is wrong, how long had you been away from home?
I'd been away from home for 3 days. So this man asked me we stopped to buy, I think she wanted to get water or something. And then the man started to ask me, why are you crying? I said, I want to go back home. Now for 3 days I had not bathed. Of course, I looked dirty and I was crying. So this gentleman was concerned, and he asked me, where are you going? I said, we were meant to go home, but we have not been home. And then he said to me, well, where do you live around here? I said, no. And then they asked the lady, and then the lady intervened, and she said, oh, I'm taking her home and everything. I started crying because I was frustrated. She had been telling me we're going home all this while.
The beauty of a caring society is that it leaves no room for evil. A simple act of concern by a stranger saved Gladys's life. And
I remember the man said to her that, okay, we're going to take you to a local chairperson, if you're not sure where you're going. And then she said, no, I know where we're going. So I think it was about 2 to 3 men, and another lady intervened, and they said, no, let's take you and this young girl to the local chairperson until you get in touch or call them or call her parents to pick her up for you to go home. She said, no, we know where we're going. I think they started having an argument. But lucky enough, these people persisted and insisted. They took us to the...
That was interesting that that strangers were that concerned, you
yes.
were that conscious.
Yes,
you know?
And I'm really grateful that at least somebody looked at me and said, oh, maybe this child is not fine. This child is not okay.
So, they keep arguing and then?
And then we were taken, but it was not willingly. We were accompanied by a number of men to pass to the local chairperson's house. And then I remember she had her special room, and she was closely monitored as they were trying to find who my parents were at the time, because they had been airing and announcing me, but no one had come up to say, we know the child.
How long did it take you to get over this?
When I was young, I didn't want to talk about it because it felt like you're not smart enough. How can that happen to you? Considering my dad and my mom had always told us, don't accept things from strangers, don't take sweets, don't enter strangers' car. So I never talked about it until recently, when we started finding mutilated body parts of children. And then I realized I could have been a victim of the same thing. And it's then that I started to think about it, and it's then that I went back and asked my mom about the whole incident, about the whole story. She was like, oh my God, it's an experience I never want any mother to experience and such. So I started to relate with kids missing, when they announce the child and the child is missing, no one ever finds the child, and then only to find a body part of the child. I was in the UK, I left in 2007. And all these things were still going on, but I still followed it up when I was in the UK. And BBC came, I remember they have a documentary that they took of child sacrifice, and this whole voodoo thing, how people believe you can be rich by killing somebody else. So I felt it is one thing that I'm very passionate about. I'm passionate about it because I'm not over it in a sense that it's happening to some other person, it's happening to some other family. But it's not traumatizing me. But the reason I'm saying I'm not over it, because I know that same experience that my parents went through is an experience that's awaiting another family, or a certain family is going through. Yeah, that's how I've not gotten over it. But the thing that is traumatizing me, I'm just so grateful to God, as opposed to thinking I could have died.